Hi, and welcome back to our study on revealing the end time. I'm Robert. I'm great to be back with you again. Excited that you're with me. We're in week 4 of our study, and if you want to follow along, you can just go to my website. It's just everlastingcovenant.org, and if you do a / revealing the end time, all one word, it will pull up the study for you. Additionally, I did this week upload for you guys the timeline. So in time dash timeline dot xlsx. I'll probably make that a PDF by the end of the day as well, so you could just do a PDF. That way you'll get it if you don't have Office XLXS. Anyway, you can do that and you can download it. So last week and the prior week, I do go through my studies and I do review them. And if there's a glaring error, then I will come back to you guys and let you guys know where that error is, so that you can just make note of it. I did make an update to the PDF, the study, just on page 32 and 33. If you want to look at that, the Excel file that I was using to build the timeline moved some dates on me. It's a little bit finicky. But I've went in and I've fixed those within the study itself, and that's re-uploaded this week, so you can see it. The content was correct, but the timelines, the way that they were coming across, you can see the little parentheses with the date on the top of um, the event. The Excel file was moving that date to the other entries, and it was throwing everything off, and I didn't catch it last week. So that's fixed. So yeah, we'll jump right in. So this week, week 4, we're talking about the prophetic appointments of YuhShua, and uh, the Father really impressed on my heart to make sure you guys understand the Moed. And that's what we talk about when we talk about the prophetic appointments with YuhShua. Now, previously we talked about them as seasons, just to distinguish between day and hour, right, in the Hebrew. So, prophetic appointments with YuhShua, prophetic appointments are the Moed, or the days of YuhShua. And so, if you were to ask a Christian, or most anyone that claims to be a believer, specifically a follower of Jesus Christ, and I say that intentionally, what are the most important days to God? And it's not just Jesus Christ. There could be Messianic Christians, or even Messianic Jews, right? So, what are the most important days to God, to them? Um, Obviously, they call him God. We call him YuhShua. So they would undoubtedly tell you with zeal, Christmas or Easter, or maybe they would, pick another holiday, right? And maybe if they have any Catholic religion or some Jewish belief, they may mention other days like Good Friday, uh, maybe even Passover, things like that, right? But the main thing being the pagan holidays that the Christian believe has kind of picked up from the Romans. So the problem with this response is that none of the, now we say holidays, but it's really holy days. Um, and this one was a tough one for me whenever I came into the understanding of the way, and I came into the understanding of just the teachings around the true original Hebrew. In the Hebrew, the word holy, H-O, what we say in English, Holy, that's actually Kodesh. So within Kodesh, what we have is obviously not just the word holy, but we have the word um, dedicated in the English. It would probably be a better word. Um, and so, forgive me, my phone is going off. So in English, this word holy is actually from really a different time where holy days were attributed to days of importance. We just attribute them as modern people now attribute them as holidays. In the Father's word, it's Kodesh. Yahuwah is known as the Kodesh one. So he's dedicated to us and we're dedicated to him. That's what Kodesh means. And the reason this was a tough one for me is, we used to be in church and sing holy and feel the presence of the Father. And so I don't say holy anymore, just like I don't say glory anymore. But uh, there's there's an understanding of that in the teachings of the way whenever you break it down from its original content. Um, but the point being that uh, the problem with this response is that none of the holidays or holy dash days, right? That's where that comes from, known in English as holidays, represent Yahweh's 7 Moed, or 7 days. And make no mistake, understanding the 7 Moed is the key to unlocking all prophecy. All prophecy. Like I said, the signs that are put into the heavens, the sun and the moon, those cycles, the moon cycle, is how is the Father's time clock. So not only is it the key to unlocking all prophecy, it's the way that the Father reveals the prophecy to his messengers or Nabi. Okay. So those messages that get revealed either through the word directly, and we'll talk about the events of that, and or there's verses that talk about how the Father will reveal his word through his prophets. So, um, so here's how easy it is to have blinders on and miss this point just relying on English interpretations of Scripture. In the Scripture, in the teaching series on who is Israel, we talked about Jacob. We know him as Yaakov, and how he wrestled with Elohim. The English, however, would have you believe he wrestled with an angel. Yet the Scripture was clear that Jacob wrestled with Elohim. So Genesis 32, 24 through 28, and we looked at this in the last session, so I'm just going to paraphrase it here, or I'm just going to read it here, verses in the Blue Letter Bible that we would normally use. We will use that just in a minute. But so Yaakov, or Jacob, was left alone and wrestled with a man, is what the Scripture says, until the breaking of the day. When he saw that he didn't prevail against him, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was strained as he wrestled. And the man said, "Let me go, for the day breaks." But Yaakov said, "I won't let you go unless you bless me. Baruch me, I want a blessing." He said to him, "What is your name? What is your name, Jacob?" Yaakov. And he tells him, he says Yaakov, which means obviously supplanter, or other things that we've said in the English. So he said, Yaakov, he said, "Your name will no longer be called Yaakov, but Yisrael." We say Israel or in English, but it's Yisrael, for you have fought with Elohim. Now, this is our first clue that this isn't a man, or he couldn't have made this statement. It's also not an angel, or they couldn't have made this statement. Elohim is plural for the mighty ones. Okay? So Yaakov called the name of the place Pen-el. So Penny-L, if you were kind of writing it out to understand it, which means facing Elohim. Another clue that the place where he's calling it is Kodesh to him, and he is calling it, "I have seen Elohim face to face, and my life is preserved." Now the scripture is very clear: no man has seen Yahweh. No man has seen Yahweh, not even Moses. But obviously, Moses visited with a malak, a messenger. This is that messenger. That messenger visited with Moses, Moshe, at the tent of meeting. And that tent of meeting, he would come down and visit and talk with Moshe, and give him instruction. That's obviously Yeshua. Yeshua is the Yeshua is, and we'll show the timeline where Israel enters the land of Canaan, the promised land. But until that period, there's the wars of Joshua, but it's actually known as the wars of Yahweh. They are led by Yeshua himself. Okay, so here's another verse, and both Joshua and Yaakov have this encounter with Yeshua in the what we call the Old Covenant. It's not the Old Covenant, in the original covenant. Okay, so here's another verse in Hosea or Hosea that's often never quoted that brings clarity to Jacob's encounter. So again, I gave you one interpretation just through the Hebrew itself, but here's another verse that talks about it that you don't really ever hear anybody talk about. Again, we interpret scripture through scripture. So Yahweh also has a controversy with Yehuda, Hosea 12, 2 through 5, and we can probably pull that one up. So Yahweh has a controversy with Judah and will punish Yaakov according to his ways, according to his deeds, who will repay him. In the womb he took his brother by the heel. That's the supplanter part of his name. And in his manhood, or in his strength, he had power with Elohim. Indeed, he had power over the Malach. So you're seeing this says over the angel prevailed. He wept and made supplication to him. He found him at Beit El, Beth El. Okay. And there he spoke with us. Even Yahweh, the Elohim, Yahweh is his name of renown. Well, it doesn't say angel, right? If I go to the Hebrew, let me make sure you guys can see that. Yeah. If I go to the Hebrew, the angel in the Hebrew is Malak. Malak. So Mem, Lamed, Aleph, Kof. Malak. So Malak is not angel. Malak is messenger. Mostly messenger, okay? Messenger. Malak. Now, it's just another verse that talks about how he met with Elohim face to face, right? So the point being here is you can only use scripture to interpret scripture. When you can't do that, then the time of the prophecy has not been revealed yet, or Yahweh has not yet given man understanding through his messengers or his true Nabi, his prophets, really Nabi, not prophets, and watchmen through his Ruach HaKodesh, right? So the Moed or seasons are what we know as feasts. They convey watching with Ayin and pitching a tent, Wa with Yeshua. It speaks of events in motion. That's the Mem, or the water, and having spiritual sight to discern the things of the spirit being the Dalit, the door. So if we look at Leviticus chapter 23, and let's look at Leviticus chapter 23 and how there's so much that we miss with our Greco English Bibles. So Leviticus 23, verse 1 and 2, from most English Bibles. So look at that one, Leviticus 23, verse 1 and 2. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel and tell them, the set feast, that's the Moed of Yahweh, okay? The appointments of Yahweh is the way you want to think about them, which you shall proclaim to be Kodesh events, convocations like events, even these are my set Moed." Okay, so this is Leviticus 23 before he goes into breaking down the Moed, and we're going to break down the Moed just briefly at the introduction of this series, of this weekly lesson. So if we look at this in the original Hebrew language, it doesn't say, "Speak to the children of Israel and tell them the set feasts of Yahweh, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations. Even these are my set feasts. It actually says Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel, say to them, the Moed, the appointed times of Yahweh is what that's saying. The appointed times of Yahweh." So we can look at that. Tools. Speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them. And then there's a break here. See the break? And it says, when it says the feast, he's saying Moed. Moed. And then he says Yahweh. Doesn't say of the Lord. It says Yahweh. It's not Jehovah. It's Yahweh. Jehovah is ruining chaos. Don't ever say that. It's Yod. Obviously, Yod He Wahe is his name, not Yod He Vave. Don't do that either. Change the name of the Father. So, which you are to proclaim as Kodesh, and we'll show that word real quick. Which you are to proclaim as Kodesh. There's Kodesh. Okay. Kodesh gatherings. My appointed times are these. Now he's going to go into them, but pay very close attention to the very first one he lists. Pay very close attention to the end of this statement, because he's saying, my appointed times, my moed are these. And he does this twice. He's going to say it twice in this chapter. Here is the first time in regard to connecting the Shabbat to these appointed times. Leviticus 23, verse 3, he says, and my appointed times are these, right? My appointed times are these. Verse 3, go back to it. My set feasts, my appointed times are these. 6 days shall work be done, but on the seventh day is a Shabbat of rest, Kodesh rest. So 6 days work is done, but the seventh day is Shabbat of rest, a Kodesh gathering. You do no work. It is a Shabbat to Yahweh in all your dwellings. Right? You shall do no work. It is a Shabbat of Yahweh in all your dwellings. And again, I break this down in, I think, Who is Israel? As far as the difference between the words labor and work. I'm not going to go into that, but very clear. Do no work. It is a Shabbat to Yahweh in all your dwellings. Okay? That doesn't mean you can't rip a piece of toilet paper off of your, or, wash your hands or turn on your oven to put a pizza in or something that's already prepared. That's not what it's saying. So as we start to build on our end time timeline, let's look at scripture in the book of Hosea. Hosea 6, 1 and 4. So again, the Father starts with the Shabbat. He will end with the Shabbat as well, because the Shabbat will be celebrated for eternity. So, come, let us return to Yahweh, for he has torn us to pieces, and he will heal us. He has injured us, and he will bind up our wounds. After 2 days, he will revive us. On the third day, he will raise us up, and we will live before him. Let us acknowledge Yahweh. Let us press on to know Yahweh. As surely as the sun rises, Yahweh will appear. He will come to us like the rain, like the spring rain that waters the earth. Ephraim. Now remember, Ephraim is Israel. Israel, what shall I do to you? And no, it's not just the northern kingdom of Israel anymore. Ephraim, Manasseh represent Israel. We've talked about this ad nauseum, right? Ephraim, what shall I do to you? The Father's in Hosea talking about the very end of the judgment period, of the initial judgment period, let me say it that way, coming out of Daniel, and then going into chronological order, in terms of the scripture from Daniel, moving into Hosea. So, Judah, what shall I do to you? For your love is like a morning cloud and like the dew that disappears early. So the Father is considering, does he continue to alienate or bring punishment upon Ephraim, who represents Israel, or is there another path? So if we break down the true hidden meaning of Shabbat, I want you to look at these verses a little bit closer. Hosea 6:1-4 is probably a scripture that we're going to spend some time on talking about in different ways in terms of a timeline. He says, "Come, let us return to Yahweh, for he has torn us to pieces." Who is the us in this, right? So he will heal us. He has injured us. He will bind up our wounds. And then notice he says, after 2 days, he will revive us. After 2 days, he will revive us. I want you to think about this 2 days whenever we cover how the Father starts to break down times or events from a time methodology later. But he says, after 2 days, he will revive us. On the third day, he will raise us up. He will live. We will live before him after the third day. Let us acknowledge Yahweh. Let us press on to know Yahweh. As surely as the sun rises, Yahweh will appear. He will raise us up. We will live before him. He will appear. He will come to us like the rain. That means from the Shamayim, like the spring rain that waters the earth. Ephraim, what shall I do to you? Judah, what shall I do to you? If we break down the true hidden meanings of Shabbat with me for a minute about Yahweh and Yeshua's return, Psalms 90 verse 4 says, "For 1,000 years in your sight are but as yesterday, a day when it is past as a watch in the night." 1,000 years are as yesterday. You know, we can see this again. I think it's in 2 Peter. Let me grab that verse. I think I went too far. Yeah, second Peter 3:8. So here's another way to look at this. There's over 40 verses that talk about this. 2 Peter 3 verse 8. Here it's a little bit more clear. Peter's saying, Kepha is saying, but don't forget this one thing. Do you think this is an important statement? Don't forget this one thing, beloved, that one day is with Yahweh as 1,000 years, 1,000 years as one day. This is an enigma that, I call it an enigma, that will unravel as we go through the study, okay? But just keep that in mind. So if he's saying quite literally, going back to this prophecy in Hosea, he's saying after 2,000 years, day is a year, 1,000 years a day. Does that apply to this verse? Is really the question you're asking, right? So after 2,000 years, he will revive us. On the third day, he will raise us up. We will live before him. He will come from the Shamayim. He will appear. So for 1,000 years in his sight are but as yesterday or a day when it's passed as a watch in the night. So talking about the Moed, I just want you to keep that scripture in mind as we go through the study. My appointed times are these 6 days. 6,000 years work is done. But the seventh day, we're talking about the Shabbat, or on the seventh day beginning, is a Shabbat of rest, a Kodesh gathering. I love the language that he's using here, a Kodesh gathering. Yahweh's not talking. Yahweh's word is, you have to look at it as almost three-dimensional, okay? When he says, these are my prophetic appointments, and he says, these are going to be Kodesh gatherings, he's prophesying. All the Moed were prophetic, both parables and ways to convey to his people how to keep the time before his return. Okay? And that's what he's saying. My appointed times are 6 days or 6,000 years, work is done. But the seventh day, or on the 7,000th day beginning, or the beginning of the 7,000th day, is a Shabbat of rest, a Kodesh gathering. So is Yahweh giving us a timetable to go off of to align key milestones around? Or just giving us general understanding of how he views the timetable of this age? After 2 days, 2,000 years, he will revive us. On the third day, 3,000 years, he will raise us up. So we'll look at this closer as we go through the study. But again, we've covered this, but the Kodesh or the Kodeshim are the ones dedicated to Yahweh. The Kodesh one, they are dedicated to Yahweh, the Kodesh one, and Yahweh only. They are separated. That's the sheen, the two front teeth that separate meat when you're eating it and things in your mouth, because they follow Yahweh's Moed days. That is the symbol of Kof, Kaf going back to the east, the sun setting at the horizon, because of the sun rises in the east and sets in the west for a reason. Return to the east, because they follow Yahweh by guarding and protecting Shabbat. They acknowledge Yahweh and Yeshua, the door. He's the way, right? He said, I am the way, the truth, and the high. He's the door to Yahweh. That's the reason he came, was to restore relationship for us with Yahweh as the creators. And he will, so Yeshua and Yahweh are the creators, and we'll see Yeshua return. Yeshua is the light of day. Shabbat day speaks of those who are separated from the world, those who belong to Yeshua and are in his house, Beit, the house, the floor plan of the tent, and are in his family, and those who have Yahweh's mark, not a cross, Yahweh's mark, Sod, not Sod, Yahweh's mark, are eternally a monument in time. So the Moed are not Christmas, Easter, or any other pagan origin holiday. They're also not some of the Jewish additional feasts that have been added. And I don't want to take away from those just because those are memorial feasts, the same as we do 4th of July. They all centered around specific events of war or tragedy, right? But the point is this: it doesn't matter if it's Christmas, Easter, or I forgot the name of the one that they signed. That what is it? Hanukkah, right? Hanukkah is an additional holiday or made up holiday for the Jews. So it doesn't matter what that is. And I mean, when I say additional or made up holiday, I'm not trying to create offense. I'm just saying it's not one of the original 7 days or moeds or appointments of Yahweh, period. So whether you're on the Christian side, the Messianic side, or the Jewish side, or the Catholic side, whatever, Protestant, it doesn't matter. If you believe in these holidays, they're not the original 7 days that the Father gave us to celebrate. And he did want us to celebrate them. The new moons, when they appear, they are supposed to be the celebrations. So they are instead Yahweh's prophetic appointments with mankind, broken down here. So if we continue in Leviticus 23, we already talked about the first moed, or the first appointment, which was the Shabbat day, keeping the Shabbat every 7th day. Now we'll continue and see the rest of the moed in starting in verse 4. So these are the appointed times of Yahweh, Kodesh gatherings, which you are to proclaim at their appointed times. And then he starts to break them down. I'm not going to go into all that detail right now. I just want to give you a general understanding of how to approach this. So number 1, the first one was Passah. We know it as Passover. Passah, or Passover, was celebrated in practice to teach Israel that the Messiah was going to come. And these are the events surrounding his coming. And that salvation was through YuhShua. That's what the scripture teaches. I read that to you last week. I may have that verse this week to share it with you again. But salvation is in YuhShua, not Jesus. Not even Yeshua. Salvation is in YuhShua. Okay? And I know when I say these things, and I'm just quoting scripture, that people take offense to this. But YuhShua is Israel's salvation. He's using Yeshua as his instrument to bring about that salvation. That's Yeshua's name. Yahweh's salvation. Yah is short for Yahweh, and Shua is salvation. It's not deliverance, not Yehoshua. It's salvation. So Yahweh's salvation. So Yeshua, like I said, Yeshua was leading the armies of Israel as Shar Sababo. Okay, he's leading the armies of Israel and of the Shamayim, of the hosts of heaven, into battle with Joshua. Yeshua is the Malak that you're seeing talking to Moshe. He's all through the original covenant. It's just been taught as an angel or the angel of the Lord, which is ridiculous. It's Yeshua, okay? Because he can reveal himself. He can reveal himself, whereas the Father cannot yet reveal himself because of our sinful state. So we see the Passah is a salvation by Yeshua, given by Yahweh, and Yeshua is a sacrificial lamb. We see that in Exodus 12:48, where they were asked to practice this for this Kodesh event. We also see that foreigners, or those that didn't have covenant but had come to the belief, could also partake in salvation. Okay, so that's where we get this idea of Israel and the Gentiles. And you guys know my view on the Gentiles and Israel. We'll continue to expand upon that. The next day was Chag Ha-Motzah. Okay, that's unleavened bread. So when Yeshua was buried, that's the event that Chag Ha-Matzah was telling us to witness, right? It was saying Yeshua, he said, I am the bread of I am the bread of life. He was poured out for us from the Shamayim. I'll come back to that one, but even his birthplace, Bethlehem, means house of bread. Beit Laham, house of bread. It's not Beth, it's Beit Laham. So, house of bread. He was saying, I'm the bread of life. I'm the bread of high. I'm the matzah. I'm right. I am the manna that was poured out from the Shamayim for you. Matzah is, or the bread is striped, it's pierced, and it has no leaven, representing Yeshua HaMashiach, the perfect sacrifice. Now, why do we say poured out from the Shamayim? I talk about this in scriptural giving. In scriptural giving, we break this down in great detail, how ministers will give an account for what they've taught about giving, because the greatest blessing that we could ever receive was Yeshua HaMashiach, the Messiah, being poured out for us from the Shamayim down upon us. Okay? He is the bread of high. That's what the scripture's talking about. Bring bread into my storehouse, that there would be more than enough, right? And it's talking about being poured out for us. That's Yeshua HaMashiach. It's a prophecy of Messiah if Israel will return to the Torah, the written, loving instruction of the Father. Yom HaBikurim, or first fruits. This is representing Yeshua being raised from the dead. He is the first heir. He is not the firstborn. John 3:16 it doesn't say firstborn. It is saying he is the first heir. For Elohim so loved the world. So Yeshua and Yahuwah so loved the world, mankind, that they gave their one and only heir, that's Yeshua, that whosoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal high. That's existence with Yahuwah. Life is just a word that's been put in there. Okay, so first fruits, Yeshua is the first fruits of the harvest. This is what the Israelites practiced in the giving cycle. We call it tithing. It's more than tithing, of course, it was offerings as well. So Yeshua was raised from the dead, but he was raised from the dead not as the only begotten Son, but as the first heir of many brethren, you and me and others that desire that to be that gift for Yeshua when he returns. Naturally, the early crops of the spring planting would occur. They would wave the sheaf offering before Yahweh. Yeshua was basically that offering, that first fruits offering with Yahweh. He laid down his life. Elohim replants the earth in the spring. That's the resurrection of Yeshua. It's not Easter. Okay? This is just how I don't understand how we've twisted this up so much. Shabbat, Pentecost, is what is represented by Shabbat. Pentecost, though, specifically, Yeshua as Yahweh Elohim, he sends the Ruach HaKodesh, John 16, 13 through 15. I want to look at that real quick. I think it's 13. Oh. 16, 13 through 15. However, when the Ruach of truth, has come, he will guide you into all truth. He will not speak from himself, but whatever he hears, he will speak. He will declare to you things that are coming. He will esteem me, for he will take from what is mine and will declare it to you. Yahweh and Yeshua are Ehad, they are one. And all things whatever the Father has are mine. There he goes, he says it. Therefore I said that he takes of mine and will declare it to you. That's what it means to be one, the Ehad, they are one. The Father's Spirit, it's Yeshua's Spirit. It is their presence that is poured out on us, given to us by the Ruach HaKodesh, as the Ruach HaKodesh, sorry. So this marks the summer harvest. There are two loaves. It's talking about the Jew and the Gentile, or really what becomes the Kodeshim. Yom Teruah, the Day of Trumpets. We talked about this last week. This is the kidnapping of the Kodeshim. You've often heard it as a rapture. The right way to say it would be the kidnapping of the Kodeshim. We're going to talk more about this as we progress. These are the gifts of for Yeshua that the Father has given him, or plans to give him. The kidnapping of the Kodeshim, or the Day of Trumpets, is for the field workers to come to the temple. They would blown by our new Kohen Hagadol, or our new High Kohen, Yeshua HaMashiach. We talked about this. Yeshua is not of the order of Acharon. Yeshua is the order of Melchizedek. It's a new Kohen, or priesthood, we would say in English, but it's a new order that Yeshua is establishing. Okay? And what we mean by that is, of course, he's going to write the Torah into our hearts. He's not going to write it on tablets and ask you to, well, the tablets will still be, I believe will still be there. I don't think that they're going away. But I would say that he's going to write his loving instruction on your heart. Okay. And that's really what that's saying. He's a Cohen of a new order. Um, and what that will be will be revealed to us in time. But it's not of the order of Aharon, uh, where the sacrificial law and all that stuff is still in effect until he returns. He's already established his. He's going to establish his new kingdom. Yom Kippur, the sixth day, is a day of atonement. Yeshua's second coming. That's what this represents, is Yeshua's second coming. It's not fulfilled by the Kodeshim. This is Yeshua's return at his second coming. Then we have the last day, Sukkot, which is the tabernacles or tents. And if you don't understand this, it's really simple. Israel dwelled in tents in rest after the Exodus crossing of the Red Sea. So what this is signifying, Sukkot is saying, all will come to worship Yahweh in the new Jerusalem. This is where Yahweh will give, will how do I say this? Put into effect the covenant of pitching of tents forever. Okay. If you don't know what the pitching of tents is, go and watch the teachings of the way so you understand Yahweh's name is quite literally talking about pitching a tent or camping with mankind. So as a believer, you have no excuse, no other scriptural instructions to celebrate any other days. Yeshua fulfilled Passover, unleavened bread. He fulfilled first fruits and Pentecost. So the first 4 days are fulfilled. That's what Yeshua said when he said, "I have fulfilled," or I in your presence, I am the fulfillment of the law. He fulfilled the sacrificial law. That's what we're talking about. The first 4 days are fulfilled. We are waiting on the fulfillment of trumpets, the atonement, and the tabernacles, or the Moed appointments. Okay? The Moed appointments. And these are these final trumpets, the Day of Trumpets, the Day of Atonement, and the Tabernacles, the Day of Tents, sorry. It's always talked about as tabernacles, and that just throws people off that are really trying to understand this, but it's a tent. It's really simple language. Sukkot is a tent. These are the three that we're waiting on to be fulfilled from a prophetic standpoint. So um, I'm feeling prompted to pull the Father's name up for you in closing today's first part of today's session. I didn't get through hardly anything um, in terms of what I wanted to share with you, but I'm trying to keep them to about 45 minutes. So um, let me show you. So let me see if you can see this. I don't think you can, so I'll have to share it. All right, so let me just copy this real fast, and then you can see it. Okay. Trumpets, and we'll just. Oh, I have to share it this way. No worries. Page 15. Sorry, bear with me. All right, we'll go to Down here to page 15. So make sure you can see that. Yeah, you can. So we look at the Father's original name, and this is we talked about this last week too. The Father is going to break camp in the Shamayim. He is going to come back with Yeshua. That's all of this is connected. So when you look at the Father's name, you know, the way it was originally shared with us is we've talked about this, the Yod, the Hey, the Wah, and the Hey. So the Yod, the arm in the hand, the Hey is the spirit man with his arms raised, the Wah being the tent peg, right? The tent peg, and then the Hey, of course, the spirit man. What this is talking about, the Father's name, what it's talking about is see the works. That's the arm and the hand. See the works, the actions of the Father. And then it's like, behold, behold. That's what the spirit man, it's a declaration. It's like, behold, see the works and the actions of the Father. Behold, see how he pitches his tent. His tent, that's the tent peg, the wall, not a vav, a wall. He pitches his tent and secures his way. We call it the way with mankind. Behold, see that the pitching of tents is a covenant that he's established with mankind, in this case, Adam and his descendants. Now it's those that would believe in the work that Yeshua did and those that would also obey his loving instruction. You cannot separate the two. You cannot separate the two. So if we break this down in the original letter forms just a little bit further, we've talked about this enough, and I'll go ahead and close it here. But what I wanted to show you was look at this in the ancient language. So here's the pictograph, the odiot that we shared with you, which is the arm, spirit man, the tent peg, and the spirit man. That's Yod He Wah He. Then when it converts to Paleo Hebrew, you can see that the script gets turned on its side. But notice, at least with the Paleo Hebrew, you can still make out the arm in the hand on the far right. You can still make out the spirit man that looks like a backward E. It just doesn't have the tail for the spirit symbol, or this, like a ghost, right? A spirit, right? The way we understand a spirit, that's not what it is, but it just doesn't have that tail. And then you can see the tent peg. The wall is still pretty distinguishable, right? And then the tent peg. But what I'll draw your attention to next is the modern Hebrew. The Yod becomes this line. The Hey becomes basically, it looks like the way they'll teach it in modern Hebrew is it's a house, but it's open, and because it's open, that's the Hey. And then the tent peg is just basically looks like a I in English, a capital I, or Roman numeral 1, or whatever, right? It's kind of indistinguishable. You almost had to learn a new language, modern Hebrew, what I call modern Hebrew, to even distinguish it against the Father's original symbols. So when we come back together, we're going to start to break down more of the timeline. We're going to start to break down how the Father views time. So when we're talking about the 7 weeks or 70 weeks, or 7 days a week, that's really what that 7, when it says 7 sevens, 7 times, 7 times something, or times and a half, or getting into, a day is 1,000 years, 1,000 years is a day, when is a week, and when is a year, all that stuff. We start to break that down in the study when we come back together. So thank you for being with me again this week, and look forward to connecting again next week.